Tell me about the race as such, because
Well,
obviously extreme endurance and
yeah, it was. I mean, the key of it. I mean, the first leg was a sort of shakedown. Went down to Rio, it was down the Atlantic, which was lovely, you know. And then, of course, then it's all started. So the real race is all about the Southern Ocean. We were in that for about 7 months, and that is just the most amazing place. I mean, it's raw, brute force. The scale of the waves is huge. It's very cold. The wind is 60, 70, 80 knots. We went through a hurricane. And just to give you an idea, the eastern seaboard of the United States had a hurricane. Their maximum wind speed, I think they got to, was 90 miles an hour. We went through 140. So you're in stuff that, and you can imagine what that's like. And it's just...
You're not prepared for it.
No. We shouldn't be there, human beings, to be quite frank. I mean, we're 2,500 miles south of any shipping. So you've got no chance of being rescued. If you're on your own, baby. And that's it. The only other potential rescue is your other boats. And in fact, a yacht got dismasted, another busted its boom, and they were helped by other members of the race. So camaraderie is phenomenal.
How did the race end?
Well, for us, you
Yeah.
mean? Well, we came 7th. The problem we had, we were by far the fastest boat. We actually got stuck in the hurricane. We were slightly a bit too far south. We didn't know. We had no satellite imagery or anything like that. And so we went from about 3rd to last, and we caught up because these boats, I mean, we beat the yacht behind us coming across the Atlantic by 11 seconds. That's how close it is, because they're all exactly the same. So we did really, really well. I mean, our personal performance was world class because we were by far and away the fastest. Otherwise, we'd have stayed last.
You finished that? You learned plenty. What did you start to do then?
Well,
You've run a few marathons as well.
I'm running the London Marathon this year. Yeah, I've done 36, I think.
36. Oh.
Yeah, I've just been in Rome, so I beat the Pope. He was there too. He was going to have his inauguration on Tuesday, and I'm running in part of St Paul's, you know, whatever it is, on the Sunday in the marathon. What did I do then? I got back, wrote the book, which I'd been writing all the way along because obviously I knew, you know, the sooner we could get it out, the better. And then I'm kind of fiddling around thinking, what the hell am I going to do now with this stuff, you know, and actually feeling really lost because I've no business any longer, no mates in a sense. And I got a phone call. I'd done a radio broadcast once a week from the yacht on 5 Live and Classic FM, you know, saying how it was. And I never missed a broadcast because it's incredibly important. I mean, you know this, that you meet a deadline. And Clive Woodward had listened to it. I didn't think anybody listened except my mum. And he said that I've just been appointed as the 6th choice to be the new coach for England, the rugby team. And you're an old get off a yacht. That was a phone call. But you're a business person and nobody can argue you don't understand about tough environments. Are you interested in helping me build a world-class team? And I thought, bloody hell, what do I know? And I said to him, I don't even have a tracksuit. And he said, you put a tracksuit on, you're out of here. So my job was the 90 hours before the 80 minutes of performance. Yeah. And he said, if that's got to be world class and no excuses, everything's got to be the best. Otherwise, we're never going to perform. You know, you can't turn up to a shambles. So I just identified every single area of the journey from Monday night when the players turn up to Sunday morning when they leave with their partners often. You know, everything from meetings, food, how the training was run, etc., etc., etc. Just like if you go through a supermarket, it's a series of events, isn't it? And that's how I looked at it.
And it was an amazing journey, that one as well, wasn't it? I mean, you know,
yeah, it was
against all odds. And
yeah, well, I think that was the key thing, was the self-belief. I mean, you know, we're just big as strong and ugly as everybody else, but it was the self-belief that we could take on these guys and whoever, and that's really one of the major things that I did, and was to always examine things we did well before we examined things that did badly. Now, we didn't do. We went to my first tour was called the Tour of Hell. Those are people who know about rugby. In other words, we didn't win a match. We went down to, we started in Australia, that's right, and then we went through New Zealand and ended up in Cape Town, South Africa. Got kicked all over the place. And I said to the headlines were terrible, as you can imagine. Go home, don't bother coming back, you know, and all this stuff. And I said to the players, I got them together, and I said, look, these are the headlines. And I showed them, and I said, we're never getting headlines like this ever again. I promise you that. I don't know what we're going to do, but if we've got the resolve, they'll never write this stuff. And that was the start of the resolve. So instead of being a tour of hell, it was completely the opposite. We saw world class and what world class looked like, right? And we knew, therefore, we had to do better than what was world class. And we knew because we saw them, but they didn't see us. So we knew we had an element of taking them by surprise. And we built on that all the time.
So part of your job was to model excellence in a way? Model,
absolutely, yeah. Well, one of the first things that we did was I said we've got to have a cause. Now, businesses have mission statements, don't mean a thing. It had to be emotional, and the cause that I wrote was our duty was to inspire the nation, so that all the people who maybe don't like rugby, don't like it, which is fine, I haven't got a problem. But nevertheless, when we win this thing, they'll tell us they remember where they were and who they were with when we won the World Cup. So I said that means that all our behaviours, all the work ethic, everything has got to say I'm participating in inspiring the nation. And it's no coincidence that Seb Coe for the Olympics, guess what, he pinched it and he said was to inspire a generation. And the second thing I said to them, it's a game of inches. And here again, if you take David Brailsford of the cycling, he calls it marginal gains. But actually, I called it a game of inches, which I'd learnt from somebody else. I love the
metaphor,
Yeah, and you know, because it's achievable, isn't it? You talk to a 15-year-old child who's worrying about A-levels, you just say, look, just do a little bit more tomorrow than you did today. You can read a book in the holidays, can't you? Another one? Yeah, well, crack that one. Don't worry about that, you'll be all right. But just think of the inches that you're going to bring to your own personal performance, and you add that lot together, you're going to be fine. So and I think that's what I found. Winners don't do different things; they just do things differently. So they're not some miracle where they just understand to find out, you know, where are the inches that are going to apply to them creating world-class performance.
So it's a great success. Guys won the World Cup.
It was,
yeah.
Yes, it was.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I know, it's a fairy tale. Well, I'll tell you about the game of inches. We won by 35 seconds in extra time. So don't ever tell me winning doesn't matter, because if it didn't, why'd you keep the score? But can you imagine the nightmare scenario of coming 36 hours back on a plane, having lost by 35 seconds in extra time? And I would never get another opportunity in my lifetime to do something for my country. Never. And I've got to live with that for the rest of my life and tell my grandchildren, well, we got to the final, but we didn't win it. You know, that's my worst nightmare. I know most of the Australian players very well. They'll live with that for the rest of their lives. Why did the Poms beat us? I love the Australians. I think their attitude, I love all the Southern Hemisphere, their attitude's fantastic. But it's very, very nice to beat them. And they were very gracious, I have to say.
Yeah, no,
so I learnt a lot about graciousness and defeat too, which is interesting.
So what is it? What makes a great leader?
Well, I think it's a huge question, isn't it? You know, I think there's no question. All the great leaders. Let me just say how they equip themselves to be great leaders. Probably that's the easiest question. Most of them have started with a desire to do something for other people. I think you've got to have that. It's not money. It's not that. Some of it's could be fame, but most people start with nothing. You know. The second thing, they have an amazing ability to get people to like them, basically, and to follow them. You know, and they do that, I think, by being true to their word and keeping their word. You can get away with it a couple of times, but long term you can't. And I think the third and probably the most important thing is they know what the process is, and then they find people to help them and practice. They're not frightened to go out and ask other people. I have just to give you one example, I can put in my career, every time I've done something better, I can put a name against it. It wasn't Humphrey Walters suddenly. It was somebody said Humphrey, and I thought, wow. And I have a copse of trees where I'll be this evening in my place down in Devon, and there are 35 trees, and I planted a tree for everybody who's helped me. And I keep planting them because I look at this thing and I think, you've got this wonderful place here, which I have, and I'm very proud of it. But it wouldn't be if you never forget those trees and what they represent, that somebody came along and said, hey, have you thought of this? You ought to be doing that. Sometimes a kick up the backside. And I think that's what great leaders are very, very good at being able to refer to people who gave them a bit of advice and help, which when they put it all together, they just have this ability to get people to follow them.
This brings me to kind of my next question. and it's a massive generalisation. What is a problem with society? What do you think needs to change, you know, in general?
Well, I don't think there is a hell of a lot wrong, to be honest with you. I think this country, you go abroad and see how this country is viewed. I mean, they think we're a most fantastic place. We have a fantastic... Of course, there's disagreements. Of course there are. I mean, we know all that. But I'll tell you what, I've lived in Germany, which was divided, for goodness sake, you know. I've lived in Belgium, which is divided by language, you know, in France and so on. I think that, and I think the Olympic Games, quite apart from anything else, demonstrated what this country is all about. Sense of humour. Look at the Queen. For goodness sake, wasn't that wonderful? Iconic moment, right? We had a sense of humour. We could put on a show. Look at the games makers, the men and women volunteers. Look at the military who helped. You know, people don't realise that when you come from overseas, I go to the States a lot, they just absolutely admire what we're all about as a nation. The fact that in a turbulent world where you are going to get disagreements and stuff, nevertheless, we're somehow or other a nation that has something that people really, really absolutely admire and they really, really envy. So let's knock ourselves here. Let's smooth out some of the stuff that we're good, but I think we're doing pretty damn well, frankly.
Brilliant.